Welcome everyone. We're going to do a tutorial on the at-risk registry, which is required for hospices and home health agencies in Louisiana and highly recommended, encouraged in Mississippi for hospice and home health. Registry fulfills your agency's COP requirements to inform local emergency managers of your patients who would be needing special assistance in the event of an evacuation order called for their neighborhood. The COPs require hospices and home health to work with patients to develop a workable plan, but also requires agencies to let emergency managers know those patients that whose plans aren't quite there, whose plans are a bit shaky, where you're not sure that they can follow through on those plans. It also keeps emergency managers aware of the special needs of your patients. And I want to emphasize, this is not a registry for any nursing home patient. Nursing homes have a separate emergency plan. So if you are servicing patients in a nursing home, those patients are not to be put into the at-risk registry. Um, any questions about anything I just said? Yeah, you can ask questions at any point during today's presentation. You can either unmute yourself and ask those questions, or you can put them in the chat box. So who is this registry for? It's designed for home care patients and hospice patients who are living alone and do not have a caregiver and would be unable to evacuate themselves. Or it's for home health and hospice patients who have a caregiver, but the caregiver is either mentally or physically incapable of carrying through on an evacuation order. And it's for those hospice and home health patients who simply financially can't afford to evacuate. Prior to the pandemic, it was estimated that a 3-day evacuation cost the average family of four about $750. I'm sure post-pandemic, that price has probably risen past $1,000. And if your assessment team if your team assesses that the family simply can't afford that $750 or $1,000 to evacuate, you can put them into this registry. And then the fourth category of patients that you can put into this registry are simply those stubborn patients who are refusing to evacuate. We have those in every community. So those are the four types of patients that you would use, that you would put into that you would use the at-risk registry to inform emergency managers of uh, their their name, their address, and their need for assistance. Some important documents that we need to make sure you're aware of. There are, if you go to, we have a great resource page at www.lmhpco.org. If you go there now, you can look at this page with me. But when you get to www.lmhpco.org, at the top it's going to say professionals. And if you click on professionals, you're going to see it's going to go to emergency prepare. You'll see emergency preparedness. Click on that, and it'll take you to the page. This is where we put all of our emergency preparedness resources. On that resource page, you will see a couple of documents that I want to point out. One says the ABCs of using the at-risk registry. This is a 2-page tutorial that's going to walk you through logging in to the at-risk registry, how to put patients into the at-risk registry, and how to update them, as well as how to delete them. There are 2 forms that you're going to see. There's a Louisiana side and a Mississippi side. And inside of those sections, you're going to see consent form templates as well as evaluation form templates. There's one for Louisiana, there's one to Mississippi. If you click on these links, these hyperlinks in this PDF that we're going to produce after today's webinar, you will be able to actually get to those through the PDF. But if you're on the site right now, all you have to do is look for the consent forms and the evaluation forms. Here is the evaluation form to the left, and here is the consent form. Things to know about the evaluation form. We ask you to gather all of this information. You'll see at the top that you'll see the reminder of the 4 criteria that you have to have at least one of these. You have to meet at least one of these criteria in order to be put into the registry. And if they meet that, then you would complete this evaluation form for that patient. All of this information is what you use to put into the online at-risk registry. Now, I want to caution you, before you put any information into the registry, the patient has to give their consent. They have to consent to having their information transmitted to the emergency managers and the emergency planning folks in their local jurisdiction. That is what that consent form is about. And I want to point out the second line the third line of the first paragraph. You're going to see it says at the end, although inclusion in the at-risk registry does not guarantee that my transportation needs will be met in an actual emergency, my inclusion in the registry provides emergency managers awareness of my current health and living situation, as well as the opportunity to more accurately prepare for emergency situations in the parish or on the Mississippi side, it says county. This is real important that your staff understand. This registry provides information to the emergency managers in each parish, each county, each region, each district in each state. It does not guarantee transportation. It's to give emergency managers an awareness of who and where our patients are. And it's up to the emergency managers to decide how to best use the resources that are available to them. So we use this registry to provide that information to the emergency manager. But in an actual emergency managers have to make hair split decisions. They're making decisions on the fly. Sometimes they are not able to get to those patients simply because they may be cut off by debris, they may be cut off by water, who knows? There's a multitude of reasons why emergency managers may not get to a patient, especially a patient that they didn't know anything about until they were put into the registry like an hour before the emergency. That's why it's important that we not only identify these patients early, put them into the registry, and do the weekly update. And we're going to get to all of those things in today's webinar. Any questions about the evaluation form or the consent form? So why do we require a weekly update? And this is really important. You put your patient's information into the registry, it stays in the registry. However, it is not transmitted to the emergency manager in your parish or the patient's parish or county unless you do a weekly update. The weekly update provides each patient with 7 days of coverage at a time. Why do we require this update? We want to make sure that the information that we're sending to emergency managers is accurate and correct. Your time and the emergency manager's time is equally of value, especially in terms of when we're facing some sort of emergency situation. For instance, 25% of all of our hospice patients in Louisiana and Mississippi are deceased within 7 days of being enrolled into hospice. 50% are deceased within 30 days of being enrolled into hospice. It's really important in an emergency that we're not sending the names of deceased patients or patients in home health who have been discharged, who are no longer on service. It's important that we not clog up the system with patients that are not in need of service. And that's why we require that agencies using this system do a weekly update. The weekly update is simple, it's quick, but it has to be done in order for your patient's name to be on the emergency manager's report for that week. The reports go out every Friday morning at 7 a.m. to the emergency managers across Louisiana and Mississippi. The day before, on Thursday morning at 7 a.m., we send out a broadcast email to all of the users reminding them that important messages. But the important one is please delete any patients that are no longer on service with your agency, and please update your patients now before the close of business. We also, this week's notice, you will see, has a special advisory that on May 13th, which is next Monday, we will be doing a cleaning of our database. We will be scrubbing from our database all patients who have not been updated in the past 5.5 months, since December 31st of 2023. If you haven't touched the patient, if you haven't updated the patient in 2024, we're going to be removing them from the database. So I advise you, please go into the registry and make sure that all of your patients have been updated and that they've been updated properly. That's a big thing. I'm discovering that a lot of people don't understand the process for doing the update, and we're going to get to that in just a little bit. So we send out a total of 1,000 emails. If you don't see it in your inbox, check your spam folder. It's probably gonna be landing there. We have a lot of folks. You'll see this past week we have 885 folks that have not opened up the email we sent them. That could be because they haven't opened up the email in their inbox, or it could be because it's sitting in their spam folder because they've never given permission for our email to go directly into their inbox. So if you don't see a reminder, a weekly reminder from us, two things: check your spam folder, and if it's not there, then drop me a line, an email, just asking to be placed in the reminder database, and we will send you every Thursday morning a reminder to do the update. So let's look at what's going on right now as of this morning in the at-risk registry. As I said, on May 13th, next Monday, we're going to be scrubbing some 347 patients from the database because those patients have not been updated since December 31st, 2023, for the past, 5.5 months. As of today, we had 2,600 patients that are actually in the database, 1,600 of which you're telling us would need assistance. But there's also another 1,000 patients in the database, 1,064, that the algorithm says they were either not updated or they haven't been deleted from the system because they're no longer on service. We don't know. That's 1,000 patients that we're still having to deal with in terms of trying to decipher why they're still in the registry if they weren't updated last week. We're going to take a little closer look at these numbers now. So our reports tell us that we have 100 hospices currently using the at-risk registry, and they have over 1,500 patients in the registry, 832 of which were updated last week, meaning that they need assistance. But there's still another 700 patients in there who either don't need our assistance or who were not updated last week. There's no way for us to know. Only you can tell us, and that's where we depend upon you to keep up the registry. There are 93 home health agencies currently with over 1,100 patients in the registry, 801 who would need assistance in the event of an emergency, but there's another 356 home health patients who either do not need our assistance or were not updated last week. We have 17 agencies with 17 agencies have 347 patients in the registry who will be removed from the registry next Monday unless someone from your agency goes in and actually does an update on those patients. We have another 33 agencies that have not updated over 200 patients between January 1st and March 31st. So we don't know what their status is. Hopefully, these numbers are going down as we start using the at-risk registry during hurricane season. We'll start seeing these numbers go down. Our goal is always to get all of the patients out so that there's no question as to who needs assistance in an actual emergency. We have 97 agencies that did not update 1,200 patients last week. Why are those 1,200 patients still in the registry if they're not being updated? And then another issue that we're having is we have 45 patients in the registry who are missing either a parish or county assignment. Without the parish or the county assignment for that patient, the patient just stays in the registry. They're not included on anyone's list. So I need you to make sure when you're using the registry that you're not only picking the right state, but that you're picking the right parish or the right county for that patient. That's important. Another important feature is that we have 184 patients in the registry who are missing a zip code, and zip codes are becoming more and more important, especially as first responders use GPS to locate patients. So we need every patient to have zip codes as well as an address. Any questions from anyone on today's call? Okay, so each week we send out weekly reports to every emergency manager in 64 parishes and 82 counties every Friday morning at 7 a.m. Those reports go not only to the emergency manager, but to whomever the emergency manager assigns the duty of knowing about these patients. And most counties, most patients, most regions, most districts have several folks who are monitoring these. You have public health nurses, you have emergency nurse responders, you have a lot of people who are looking at this data, trying to figure out how we're going to manage in an emergency situation with those particular patients in mind. In Louisiana, we also have regional reports that go out on a regional to all of the regional leaders, giving them information about the patients that you are seeing and identifying as either living alone without a caregiver or having a caregiver who is either mentally or physically incapable of carrying through on an evacuation order, or their families that can't afford an evacuation, or their families refusing to evacuate. Every parish, every county, every region, every district handles this information differently. So just because one parish is doing it one way does not mean that another parish or another county is going to do it that same way. Every parish, every county, every district, every region handles it differently. And they use it not just during hurricane season. They use it with flooding, they use it with tornadoes, they use it with wildfires, they use it with industrial accidents. When the Mississippi River starts threatening communities, they look at this to see if there is anyone in their community that's under threat. It was also used during the salt intrusion issue for the Mississippi River last year, as well as in Jackson with the water crisis. So every emergency managers have a host of ways of using this data to help them understand the critical needs that your patients have in their homes. So we're going to go, I'm going to exit here and we're going to go ahead and we're going to, I have a dummy um, um, registry set up so that we can go ahead and uh, okay. So everyone, in order to get into the registry, you have to get to this page. And everyone knows what that page, where that page is. You can find it on the resource page that I directed you to, the LMHPCO emergency resource page. You can find the link there, or you can call me, or we'll set you up. But you have to have a username and passcode to get into the registry, and every agency has a unique login. So I'm going to go ahead and log in. And then you have to have a passcode. And then once you put that in, you hit submit. Let's see. GMOU. Hmm. And why am I not able to get in? The MOU CUR. Okay, let me try something differently here. We're going to try and get back there. That's right here. It's been sitting up a little while. Page, see, oh, and then yes. And I apologize. Sometimes when a tab is open for a long period of time, you have to reset the tab in order to get in. But my username and passcode did work. And when you get inside, it's going to look something. It looks something like this. To add a patient, you would simply come up here and you see this button says add new record. When you do that, it's going to put a new line into your Excel spreadsheet. It basically looks like an Excel spreadsheet. In the first column under facility, it's going to have the name of your agency. In the second column, it's going to say needs assistance, yes or no. This has to be in the yes position in order for that patient's name to be included in that week's report. To work in a line, there are two ways you can do this. You see this bar at the bottom? You can draw this all the way to the end and you can hit the edit button. And when you hit that edit button, it's going to give you a series of little boxes in which you can work and change all of these answers. So I'm going to cancel that because there's an even simpler way of activating the line. Yes, ma'am.
Excuse me, sorry. All I see is you. I don't see the site that you're working on.
I'm terribly sorry. I'm terribly sorry. Thank you. Thank you for letting me know. Now, can you see the inside?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, I'm very, very sorry. Sorry about that. Um, everyone knows how to get to the login page and how to log in, or do I need to go back
Can you
there?
re-show that?
Okay, yes. Okay, let's see. Let's do it like this. I gotta get out. Meeting it being recorded. Okay, let me get out here real quick. I'm gonna go back in. Okay, let's demo. Okay, so it took me back. It's automatically going to recognize because I used my login already. It automatically recognizes. So you have to go. You're going to go to the login page. Let's see, how do I do that? Well, I don't want to mess up too much. So we'll do this and then we'll go back to that login page if people are having trouble. Okay. So you would click on this add new record every time you have a patient. And to activate this line, you can do two things. You can take this bar and you can go over here and you say edit, and it's going to give you a series of boxes to work inside of. It's much simpler though, if we cancel that. If you need to do any editing in a line, all you have to do is double click the line. Do you see how that's happening? And it's going to give you a series of needs assistance. Yes, they need assistance. And you would put in their last name, the first name. You would put in the gender, you'd put in their address. The city. You have to make sure this is a national system that we're using. So you have to make sure that you're picking the right state. Once you pick the right state, it's going to give you a list of counties or option or parishes, depending upon what state you choose. So I'm going to go with Orleans. I'm in Orleans Parish. You have to find it, make sure you get. I'm going to put in my telephone number. I'm going to put in my imaginary weight. I'm going to, let's see, this is, and you can always, if you can't read, you can always move these columns a little bit. But remember, we had that evaluation form that I showed you earlier. If you have all of the information on the evaluation form, there is a column for each one of those lines. It's about 40 pieces of information. We get everything from the doctor's name to the doctor's telephone number to DME. All of it's on that one form. If you complete that form, then you have a value to put in each one of these boxes. I'm in region 1. I'm putting I can put my date of birth there. Now notice when you put date of birth, it's the year first, followed by the what is it? Year, followed by the month, followed by the day. And then you're going to put in your email address, you put in the zip code, very important. I'm going to put in a diagnosis. I'm going to put in the primary caregiver, my primary care, or the primary caregiver, along with the primary caregiver's telephone number. And if there is a different cell number, that's what this one is. Oh, let's go this way. Again, it's asking the next of Ken's name, the next of Ken's address, the next of Ken's phone number, the physician's name, the physician's phone number, physician's fax. It asks you, there's a place for DME supplier, the telephone number for the DME supplier, the name of the pharmacy, the name of the pharmacy's telephone number. It's going to show the date that you last did something, edited this patient or updated this patient. That's how we know the last time patients are being updated. Under transport, it gives you the options of any, means that the emergency manager could send a car, a truck, a van. The patient is mobile and just needs a way out. Paratransit means that the patient is in a wheelchair and would need a wheelchair lift. Ambulance means that the patient is on a stretcher and we would need an ambulance. Very important. If the patient has pets in the house, the emergency manager has a responsibility by state law to make sure that the pet is taken care of, that someone is going to be picking up the pet. Um, so they need to know whether or not there's a pet in the home. Next is reason that you're putting them in here. This is really important because the emergency manager, it gives the emergency manager a lot of options. If the patient is living alone, that's a good reason to go and help that patient out. Or the caregiver is incapable, another good reason to help them out. You'll see if you put financial on there, emergency managers have lots of resources at their disposal that they could offer to patients and families to allow them to get out themselves. They have travel vouchers, they have food cards, they have Visa cards, travel card, all kinds of resources. If it's a matter of the finances, they could probably give them enough financial resource that they could manage a 3-day evacuation. If they're refusing, then the emergency manager can go out there and talk to your patient. So that's why it's real important that you tell them the reason that you're putting them in the registry. The next is a series of boxes. If they're O2 dependent or on a ventilator, if they have infusions or feeding tubes, you would check those boxes. In terms of their mobility, they want to know whether or not they're ambulatory, they just need assistance, or they are bedbound. If they're in a wheelchair, a walker, or if there are any special care or DME supplies, you put that there. And then once you get to the end of the line, you simply hit post. Post is the same as save. That information is now in the registry. It is not going to go anywhere. It's not going to get deleted or anything like that unless you don't update those patients for 5 or 6 months. Then we're going to, every year before hurricane season, we start taking out patients who were in there from last year, but have not been updated in the current year. To do the update, which is very, very simple, you would simply log in using your username and passcode. And then once you get in, all you do is you hit this bulk edit button, and you're going to see your patients, all the patients on the line. And then you come and you once you hit bulk edit, then you put a check mark in each one of those boxes next to the patient's name. You go down the list. I want to advise everyone, this little box up here does not affect these individuals. We've this has been disengaged so that we require a deliberate action on your part to say, yes, this patient is still alive and this patient is still in need of service. And that's why you have to literally go in and use these check boxes as opposed to this check box. And once you do that, you hit the submit button and you're done. That's the weekly update. A matter of bulk edit, check marks, and hitting submit. Once you hit submit, it's done. That patient's name will be transmitted to the correct emergency manager for that patient. Any questions? A couple of other features I want to point out. Two things. One is after you have your patients in, you put your patients into the registry, you can come over to this side of the screen and you see this little blue X. If you hit that button right there, it is going to produce for you a spreadsheet. Let's see, I'm not sure if the spreadsheet will open up, if you'll be able to see it. Can you see it? Can you see my spreadsheet?
No.
No?
No, we
Okay.
can't.
Okay, so let me do that, and then I'll share this again. So When you hit that little blue button, it's going to produce a spreadsheet with all of the information that you've put into the registry for your patients. And you can save that in your emergency preparedness handbook or wherever to be able to access those patients at any given time. Okay, so I'm going to get rid of this and this.
And so if you
Uh,
don't have some piece of information, you can just leave that field blank and it's
and you can leave it, yes, you can leave it blank, but what I would hope you would do is leave it blank until you got that information,
sure.
then you come back in and fill that in. I will tell you, emergency managers, every piece of information that is on the evaluation form, it was given to us by the emergency manager saying, this is the information that we need, that we get confronted with patients. And that's why they want to know the DME, the doctor's name, the pharmacy's name. They want to know about the pets. They want to know about every piece of information that we have here. I'll tell you, the weight is a very important metric because it
Yep.
determines whether or not they're sending out one person to help someone into a van, or do they need 6 people for bariatric patients? It's we have patients that are obese that 2 people simply cannot move. We've used this information when we've had to send like firemen out to a patient's home to help EMS transport that patient to the shelter. So all of this information is critical information that the emergency managers tell us is critical to their job. That's why we've included it in here.
Yeah, that makes sense. Absolutely.
Okay.
But you can still get that patient entered and not have to put anything in the box while you're gathering if you're missing a piece of information.
Yeah, don't
Okay.
let one piece of information stop you from putting as much as you can as you're getting that information, because we want, the most important thing is that the emergency managers know who these patients are and where they are early on. If they know about your patient in May and they're watching these reports each week and they're seeing the same names each week, and by the peak of hurricane season, they're thinking about your patient. However, if we have some sort of disturbance that's thrown into the Gulf, that comes into the Gulf, and all of a sudden hospices and home health start throwing patients into here, remember, they've been planning for the patients that they've been seeing each week. They're not planning for the patients that hospices and home health start throwing in at the last minute. That's why it's important to identify these patients now, put them into the registry now, and update them on a regular, on every week, so that emergency managers see this, and their staff are seeing the same names over and over. And it's not just seeing the same names, they're actually making contact with these patients throughout the season, especially if there's something that's brewing. They're going to be called a lot of office public health nurses are working with emergency managers to help them manage these lists. A couple of other features that you can find in here. FAQ gives you sort of a little encyclopedia of questions asked and issues around putting patients in and out of the registry. If you run into a problem, if you anything from forgetting what your login is to it's not working, you can hit this support button right up here. Let's do it again. Okay. And this is probably not working on the demo site, but when you click support, it's going to pull up an email and it's going to ask you, is this a technical issue or is this a patient issue, and it's going to give you a little text box and put your message in. When you hit submit, it comes directly, it goes straight to me, and we try to address within 4 hours any support tickets that we get from providers. It will also give you these. You can choose reports as how you want to see that information. Any questions? Okay. I'm going to go ahead and log out of this demo area, and I'm going to go back to my PowerPoint. And we're going to share the screen here. That's right. Yeah. Okay. So it's simple to use. You need to have a username and a passcode. It allows you to put information into the registry found on the evaluation form. You have to complete the weekly update by the close of business on Thursday in order for the report on Friday morning to have your patient's name on there. But it's real easy to do that update. All you do is sign in, click the bulk edit button, you put a check mark by the names of each patient you want to keep on service for another 7 days, and then you hit submit. Is anyone on today's call not receiving the weekly update reminder? Everyone's receiving it. Great, great, great. Okay. So I want to remind everyone that we have this page that you can always access any of this information. It's a support and resources for providers. You go to www.lmhpco.org. You look under professionals and you go to emergency preparedness. All of these resources are on that one page right there. There's also another link for support and resources for patients and families. So you may want to go there, check out that page under families and caregivers. You will see emergency preparedness, and we've put there some resources that you can download, print off, and hand to, give to your patients, so that they know, so that they can have their plan crystallized. If you run into problems, you can always email me at jboudreau@lmhpco.org or crystal@lmhpco.org, and we'll be more than happy to help you with any issue that you may be facing. And right now, I want to pause to find out if anyone on today's call is having a particular issue with the registry or has a question about the registry.
I do have one question, Jamie.
Yes, ma'am.
Is it the date of birth? I noticed that it never shows up. Is it worth? I always put it in, but it doesn't show up.
It is working, but you have to look at the format.
Gotcha.
The format is the year of the patient's birth first, followed by the month, followed by the day. So you have to put it in that format in order for it to take.
Gotcha. Okay, so I need to go back in. I have not been doing that. Okay, thank you. Gotcha.
That's for the longest time I thought maybe it wasn't working, but then when you look at it, you're going to see the 4 zeros followed by 2 zeros followed by 2 zeros, and that means you have to do the year first.
Year first, then month, then day.
Yes, ma'am.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions? Okay. Well, In addition to what we just talked about, this is the Lunch and Learn recordings and topics for ESF 8. Provided you're part of ESF 8, that's Emergency Service Functions. 8 is medical. We fall under that. And these are all topics that you may want to share with your staff. There are recording links for those that have already taken place, or you can register for those that are to take place. And then I want to mention that we just received notice that on June 1st in Region 2, which is the Metro Baton Rouge area, if you are in the Metro Baton Rouge area, you may want to contact Ms. Tara Zachary, who is the coordinator. They're putting together a resource fair for this hurricane season, and they're inviting the public to come to the main library on Goodwin, and they're inviting providers to be there to talk to the public about the emergency preparedness and patience. So if you'd like to participate in that, please give Tara Zachary a call at 225-389-2100 or email her to find out, to get more details about this big event in the Metro Baton Rouge area. And this is for Region 2. Do we have any other questions? Well, I want to thank you all for your attention today. Our next meeting is next Wednesday at 1 o'clock, and we will start preparing for the upcoming hurricane season. I invite you to join us in that discussion. We will also be laying out our plan for the entire hurricane season in each week what our function is going to be. If you receive the calendar invite, all you have to do is look at the subject matter, and it'll tell you which portion of the states we are going to be focused in on in that particular meeting. So thank you for your attention today. If there are no other questions, I yield back the remainder of your day to the important work that you're doing in your community. Thank you for being here.